Hey everybody, welcome to Moms on a Mission. Today's show is sponsored by our good friends at MyPillow. MyPillow makes the best pillows, slippers, sheets, and so much more. Go to mypillow.com and use code MISSION at checkout to save up to 66% off. That's mypillow.com, code MISSION. And we would love to hear from you. Visit us at momsonamission.net. That's momsonamission.net. And please follow us on your favorite platform.
Our guest today may be the most courageous and bold journalist of the 21st century. She is fearless and asks tough questions of the world's most powerful people. She has been a war correspondent and investigative journalist and has won several Emmys along with almost every journalist and reporting award known to man. She is owned by no one. Please welcome to the show, the one, the only, Lara Logan.
Hello, Lara Logan.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's an honor for you to be with us today. So tell our audience about Lara Logan and who you are and what you do.
Well, my most important job is a mom. That's every day, I think, that becomes harder in lots of ways. You know, being a good mom today is tough. I'm sure it was always difficult, but it feels like my children are under attack from every direction, whether it's the pornography in the schools, or it's the Marxism creeping into the textbooks, or it's the critical race theory that's rebranded as DEI. They're under attack for what they say, but then there's a constant sexual, assault in everything that they watch. And then you go to Walmart and there's an entire aisle of sex toys at Walmart now, next to very, toiletries, the kind of thing that any family walks past. And drugs are everywhere. And the days of smoking a little weed here and there, I knew people growing up who were pot smokers. And we've made a lot of films and built an entire entertainment industry that glorifies using drugs, and trying to get your children to understand, hey, the cartels put fentanyl in everything today. Yeah. And you never know, when you could buy one pill, first pill you've ever bought in your life, could be a hot pill and you could die. Mm-hmm. So, I try to put the fear of God into my children and all of their friends because I'm really scared for them. Mm-hmm. And so, I feel like it used to be that these things were happening on a national level and there was some distance. It was closer to home for me because I've always been in the fight. And as a journalist, you're right on the front line. But now what's happened is it's come to our doors, every single one of us. It's as prevalent in my small town in Texas, in Fredericksburg, as it is in a big city. We may be a little bit behind in the fight, but it is very much still a big part. I'll give you an example. Like one of the attacks here there's groups like Moms for Liberty or Moms for America. And so one of the attacks on those groups is that these are radicals, right? These are extremists. And, they're trying to ban books, and they have this radical agenda, and they're not going to stop here. And they want to dictate to us how to live. And there's so many things that you want to say in response to that because it's so untrue. But what I've realized is the most powerful response of all is to take excerpts from those books that they say are not pornographic, that they say are completely appropriate, that they say should be in the schools, and to just print them. And you'd be amazed. Of course, you take that to the local paper and they say, well, we couldn't possibly print that. It's filth, right? And this is a family newspaper. Okay. So then you say to people who are on the school boards, well, let's make a booklet, pamphlet with the name of the book, the pages, where the excerpts come from, so parents can make up their own minds. Well, no, I don't know if that's necessary. Maybe we should just, have a policy where the books can be there, but they require parental consent. It's like, what happened to our right and responsibility to protect the innocence of our children? You put those books in school libraries and you take away the right of parents to protect that innocence. We're not saying ban the books. Nobody is saying they cannot be written throw the authors in jail. This is a First Amendment violation. No one is saying that. We're just simply saying this is a middle school.
Right.
These books, you can get them online. Most kids today will tell you they don't get their books from the library anyway. So why is this such a big deal that these books have to be available? And then, of course, there's the policing of the books, right? Because because who's actually now, we didn't used to have to worry that you had maybe some radical leftist librarian that thinks it's appropriate to put books in the library that teach little boys how to pleasure older men. I didn't think that up the road in Texas, in Leandra, they would be teaching kids how to be furries. And being a furry is not just a benign thing of wearing an animal costume or dressing up the way kids have dressed up for all, as long as kids have been around, right? A dress up is a great fun thing. No, this is actually adopting the identity and personality of the animal and ultimately coming to believe that you are that animal. And, years ago, I had a friend who worked at what he called the Death Star, which was the Pentagon. And he was a fabulous hippie from San Francisco. He worked in so many things, and he was absolutely brilliant neuroscientist. And he would go to Burning Man on behalf of the Death Star to study human behavior. A couple of very interesting things I learned from him was one year when waterboarding was the big story across the media, he said that the only line at Burning Man that was longer than the people lining up to be waterboarded was the line of people lining up to waterboard them. Okay. But the other thing that he told me about at Burning Man was pony play. The most successful exhibit one year that had the most people was where people actually pretend to be ponies, and they wore saddles and they had stirrups and they answered to pony names, and some, they had a pony owner and a rider. I mean, these are dark fetishes that people have that I'm not going to pass judgment on. But there's a time and a place for everything. I was raised by my mother. It's a time and a place, darling. You've got to have feel for the situation around you, right? You don't go, for example, asking someone the second question out of your mouth, how much money do you make? Time and place. That's inappropriate. There's certain things you don't do. So what happened to that? What happened to basic human decency and decorum? If I want to protect the innocence of my children, say maybe my children are 8, 9 years old and they still believe in Santa Claus. I don't really appreciate you coming in and telling them that that's a myth, right? And that's a very benign example. Now we're talking about books that teach kids, excuse my French, I don't even know if I can say this on your air, but we've got one that was pulled out of our library and then put back in, which talked about kids being taught how to eat butthole.
Oh.
I mean, is that
vile?
I'm sorry. Is that really appropriate for any school kid? Now, if you want to teach your kid that, if you want your kid to have access to those kind of books at home, and online and so on, well, knock yourself out. I'm not inhibiting your ability to do so. This is not an attack on the First Amendment. That's a lie. Gun control is aimed directly at the Second Amendment. This is not. This is have all the books you want. You want to write 4 million books teaching people how to eat butthole? It's disgusting to me. I don't want any part of it. However, you have a constitutionally protected First Amendment right to talk about these things. I've never understood why the Man-Boy Love Association, which has been around since the 70s and is basically endorsing pedophilia. I don't understand why that's allowed to exist, but apparently under the Constitution, they have the freedom to exist. Well, look what's happened now. Now the role and the mission of the Man-Boy Love Association has made its way into libraries in a small town in Texas, where a friend of mine was on the board of a foundation and discovered a book in her library teaching young boys how to sexually satisfy older men.
I think that is what I struggle with, is the fact that, if you want to train your child this way, but it's almost like a religion that they're trying to advance and push on us. And we're just saying, we want to raise our kids how we want to raise them. Don't try to indoctrinate and push your agenda on our children.
Well, that's where it comes back to your right to protect the innocence of your child. There's no law that says, no. All kids have to know that the Easter Bunny's not real by age 4 or age 5, right? It's the same thing with sex. You don't have to learn all of these things about sex before you graduate middle school. For example, sex toys today are thrown around middle school like you're buying candy from the cafeteria. It's ridiculous. And so I remember a time when we used to say that your First Amendment right is protected so long as it doesn't impinge on the rights of others. Well, your First Amendment right is protected, but not where it impinges on the right of every parent to protect and guard the innocence of their child. And there are so many ways that you can proliferate this material outside of school, And so why don't you stick to one of those ways? But what people don't realize is that in these small towns, many of the people fighting these battles don't even have kids in school. Many of them are funded by the DNC, like in our area, the DNC, Gillespie County. Many of them are getting George Soros money. And people say, I don't want to talk about George Soros. Let's talk about George Soros. It's not just Soros himself. It's Alexander Soros, his son. He's got 2 sons involved in this. And it's the entire ecosystem of organizations that they have created, whether it's the Brookings Institute, which is meant from an academic perspective to endorse all of this, or it's the Ford Foundation and the Knight Foundation and the Pritzker Foundation. Look at the Pritzker family that's funding a lot of transgender surgery and, for example, transplant of wombs from women into men, right? They're doing some truly, truly unbelievable things. And while suppressing and ignoring the narrative of all of the kids who suffered terribly from these surgeries that go wrong, surgeries that cannot be reversed, and so on, right? And so there's always money and a physical infrastructure that's behind these things. We're fighting on our own as moms half the time, right, Miriam? I know you are. Clay and his beautiful wife. They're fighting on their own. I mean, everybody is fighting on their own, trying to do their best, but they're not. They've turned activism into a full-time career. They send kids into colleges that basically study primarily how to be an activist or a political operative. The law degree, the medical degree, the journalism degree, this is secondary, right? First and foremost, let me teach you how to be a good little servant in this information war. And then the other stuff is secondary. And so now they can do it forever. They never run out of time. They never run out of energy, and they never run out of money. But what they do run out of is truth.
Yes. That's right.
Because it's all based on lies.
Yep.
And what they're up against is God. Because when you get children who are so young and so vulnerable, and you force them down a path where you get a little girl to voluntarily remove her breast before she even has a chance to understand what that means, you are now walking in absolute darkness. Yes. There is no light, no love, and no God. It is that is truly a path of evil. And that path, well, it's very obvious where that path leads, because they tell us that, the church of the Temple of Set, the Church of Satan, and all the rest of it, they're rising up, encouraging more and more kids to come to them. Boston, they're having a Satan Con, like Comic-Con, Satan conference right now. Yeah. Right now that's going on. Might have just finished, but it's been happening, over this week. I mean, they're rising up and telling you, give us all of your troubled youth. You know why? Because you're vulnerable. And that way we can put our clutches into you.
Well, here in Oklahoma, just yesterday, our state superintendent, Ryan Walters, I saw him on the news last night. I've never seen someone that bold. In Oklahoma, you'd think we'd be protected against this, but it's everywhere, just like you said. But he was calling out the teachers' unions in Oklahoma, the national unions, and he used the language. He looked at him straight in the eye, said, "You are terrorists. You all are ruining our schools." And I was astounded, because I'd never heard someone come back so strongly. The other side is, like you were saying, Laura, has been strong, but I'm like, finally, someone or maybe we're starting to gain some momentum. Do you see that at all where you are, saying your moms are fighting back, but what would you suggest that moms do together? Are you seeing anything happening, where you are?
Well, first of all, I think you're right. That is a very significant indication that, number one, he no longer fears the consequences, right? He knows the consequences because everybody now is very much aware. You get cast out, you get canceled, you're a pariah, your bank account can be canceled. Companies like Salesforce won't house won't work with you. You can be rejected from any kind of store, any kind of service. You won't be allowed to be with PayPal, for example, or, whatever that thing is that raises money, and so on. So we know that the price for standing up and attacking the false narrative and standing up for the truth and for true values that are represented by 99% of the people of the world, we know that there's a significant price for that. What they are counting on is that you will be so afraid to pay that price that you will never speak up. And when that man speaks up and says, I don't care, I'm sticking by the truth because all the threats that you've given me, everything that you have said that you will do to me, none of it is worse than the cost of submitting to this.
That's right.
And what that means is that they have created many false narratives. They've suggested that most people are transgender. Somehow we've all got a transgender, thing lurking inside of us, just waiting to come out. And so on. And that normal kids, when they're questioning who they are or have bad body image or they have trauma or issues from growing up, that the only solution to that is to turn them into something else that will mess them up for life. It's one false narrative after another. And what do they have to do in order to keep those false narratives in place? They have to maintain control over them. So when you and I speak up, and when that man speaks up, that represents a loss of control. And that's a big problem because people will go along with something out of fear. We know that.
Yes.
People will go along with something when they think that there's no way to win. When they give up hope and they surrender, that's when they will go along with it. We know that most people don't believe in any of this. I mean, you'd have to be a moron at this point to think that the vaccine is going to stop you getting COVID. They've admitted that won't happen, right? So why would you still be getting the vaccine?
Right.
I mean, it's crazy. It's because you fear what they're going to do to you more than you fear what might happen to you if you get the vaccine. And so I'm going to choose to close my eyes and not believe that. But nevertheless, all of these are false narratives that are just literally crumbling before our very eyes. So what do you do? What do we do as humans when we see that? Well, you either say, oh my gosh, I was wrong. What does that mean? What do I have to do now to survive this? Or you go into denial and you dig in and you double down and you're going to stick to that no matter what, right? Or you're so deeply buried in it. I would say the John Brennans, the Susan Rices, the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Ben Rhodes, James Clapper, these people, the Mike Morells, the Tony Blinkens, the George Bushes, the Mike Pence, the Mitt Romneys, these people are so deeply embedded in this, in these false narratives and in these lives. They are so corrupt. They are so guilty. There's only one way forward for them. It's deny, 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 right to the very end, because there's no redemption for them. They are so committed. There's no redemption. I mean, in a sense, they remind me of the wicked in the Bible, right? Because the sinner can repent and look at Jesus and God, turn to them for forgiveness. But the wicked spits in the eye of God. These people spit in the eye of God because I'm not even sure they still have a soul left, right? They sold their soul to the devil so long ago that it's beyond redemption. That's not my decision to make. Obviously, that's God's decision to make. So maybe some of them can be redeemed, but we don't see them asking for redemption.
Oh.
We don't see them coming forward. We don't see Fauci coming forward and saying, you know what? We weren't honest about the clinical trials. We did know hydroxychloroquine worked. We were scared. We were pushed into something. I don't believe any of that, but you don't see him doing it. You don't see them asking for redemption. You don't see Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden asking for redemption. You don't see the Biden family coming forward and saying, there was a problem with China and our business dealings and we're severing it all. No, it's always one more lie after another, after another, after another. And you see them lying about the border, lying about the kids that are going missing, covering up for CPS. No one's calling out Child Protection Services and all the children that they've been involved in trafficking. No one's calling out the family courts and saying, we got to fix the family courts. Let's do this, this, and this. No one is coming forward and saying, in light of what we know now about January 6th and how many undercover operatives and confidential human sources that were on the ground, we are calling on every single government agency that had people on the ground to come forward, tell us who they were, how many were there, and what they were doing, what was their role in January 6th. And let's have this conversation honestly, find out how much of what happened was because of people who were trained to incite, how much happened because it was orchestrated by how much was entrapment, how deeply. It's not just the FBI that was involved. It's the Department of Homeland Security. It's the Joint Terrorism Task Force. It is the Special Narcotics Division of the Metropolitan Police. It is other units within the MPD. It is, what happened to all of those evacuation procedures that we have in place across our government. Just think for a second. Does anyone think, okay, a foreign country invades or a nuclear bomb goes off or a dirty bomb goes off and Congress is in session? Do you think that the evacuation procedure involves putting furniture up against the door?
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Come on, please. Give me a break. Where are all the people who know that we have evacuation procedures in place that are so well planned? We have resources dedicated 24/7 to protect people in the event of any such thing happening. How can people like, was it Troy Nels, be standing there helping him pack the front by? I don't know who else it was, but we had people with military training who jump in the moment. Are they that stupid or are they part of the setup? I don't know. But what I can tell you is that if you honestly believe that that's what we do when some of the 570 of the most important people in the United States government are under threat, that all we can do is put furniture up against the door and hope for the best.
That's scary.
Seriously. And then the journalists, shame on the journalists who carry those narratives and don't question any of these things and don't know enough to question these things because they haven't done their homework. They haven't bothered to learn. They haven't bothered to listen to anyone from the other side. They want to live in their bubble. They want, what they're like? It's like, I don't even expect it from them anymore because it's like getting to the end of the battle at Dunkirk or Normandy. And then, sending a delegation over to the Nazi lines and saying to them, did you write a good piece about us in your Nazi bulletins today? Because you're going to the enemy. These people are not working to bring the truth out. I can only imagine, and I can see some indications of what they're working towards. We know what they don't believe in. They've made that very clear. But telling the truth and asking critical questions and digging until you find it, those don't seem to be the hallmarks of most journalists today.
Well, and it's really not the mode for really parents and moms. I've just heard over and over and over when I see the truth and I know that something that is not true is being taught, and I share that, and I hear, well, I don't want to be a target, or I don't want my kids to be a target, and it's just this fear that is paralyzing, and I just don't get it. Like, why do you not want to stand for truth? I just don't understand. And so I guess my question for you, Laura, is, and maybe you were just born this way, but what gives you the sense of courage? I mean, you clearly have, I've seen so many of your documentaries of you like climbing out of a tank and the dude telling you to sit down and you're like, I'm leaving anyway. And you climb out of the tank. I mean, I just feel like if I could, bottle up your courage and sell it, I would be a gazillionaire.
You would be.
I mean, where do you find that courage, and what can you tell other moms to do to find that same courage?
Well, I was blessed in a sense that I was born with a real sense of purpose and a real understanding of my purpose. And I was also born with a sense that I'm just a speck in the universe. But I had the examples of leaders like Nelson Mandela that showed what it meant if you stuck to your principles, what you could actually do. And it's not in my DNA to abandon my principles. I learned as a young girl, if you don't believe in the death penalty, you can't say, except if you kill my family, and then it's okay. A principle is absolute, right? And so if you don't stand up for it all the time, then it's meaningless. Then you are not a person who stands up for principle. So a lot of people want to stand up for the principle, like a lot of journalists want to stand up for principles, right? When they're going to be rewarded for it. So I stand up to the Bush administration. I called out Cheney on air. I called out Rumsfeld on air, and they wrote glowing articles about me in the New York Times and in the Washington Post and all over. I was celebrated as being such a brave journalist. And yet when I did the exact same thing to Obama, for example, now suddenly I was, right wing, or I was crazy, and so on and so on. And suddenly I became dishonest. Before I was brave, now I was reckless. Before I was bold, now I was just, a nut job. So, for me, I kind of got lucky because I was born loved, knowing that I was loved. I was taught by my brothers and sisters and my parents, my family, and I lived in a country where people stood up for who they were. They learned who they were. They learned early on that there was a price to be paid for principles, and it was okay, to do that, to stand up for your principles. And then I had a very strong sense of self. So I don't want anyone to think that none of this is hard. It's hard every single day. Some days it's been really hard, and it never gets easier. I've been fighting this for more than a decade. I've been on the front line of this fight, and sometimes I'm exhausted. But the reality is, what I have learned about what's coming is that this will seem like a dream one day. Having the choice of whether or not to fight is a false choice, because it's never going to get better on its own. There is no army of white horses coming in to save us. There's no amount of you or me that is going to do it for us. It's going to take every single one of us. Mm-hmm. We have to stand up. If we don't, people they'll just fall in line out of fear, or, out of a loss of hope, out of hopelessness. They will go along with it, and we will lose. And when I say lose, we will lose our humanity, because the real enemy here is artificial intelligence and technology and the tiny number of people who will control all of that. They are the ones, if you think about it, you have Wi-Fi, someone has the ability to turn it off. You have a cell phone service, somebody can turn it off. You have a digital bank account, somebody can shut off your access to it or empty your bank account. You have all of your facilities in your home or your business that operate digitally, that your records that are stored digitally. Someone else has the ability to wipe it. I mean, if you look at it just by definition, technology may give us convenience. It may give us knowledge and access to things we didn't have, but it never, ever, ever gives us control. So that's how what we're really fighting for is control over our lives, our liberties, our minds, our bodies, our homes, our children, our sovereignty as individuals, as nations. That's what this war is really about. And I would urge people you can read General Flynn's guide, A Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare, but then look at sixth and seventh generation warfare for a sense of where we're headed. Listen to Ray Kurzweil, the co-founder of Google. Where's my phone? Oh, we're on our phones. So he will tell you, he stands up at his TED Talk and at Davos and these places, and he says, this phone, right, it connects you to the brain of the world. Because how? It uploads to the internet. It uploads to the cloud. Well, in future, this won't have to be separate from your body, he says. It won't have to be. Like having it separate from your body is such an inconvenience. No, you won't have to worry about losing your phone or anything like that, because it'll be your brain that will upload to the cloud. It'll be your brain that connects directly. You don't need this interface, right, of a phone that can be lost, that needs to be updated. Oh, well, that sounds great. Really? Because then how do I know where my brain begins and ends? What are my thoughts? What are someone else's thoughts? When you give people that power, why would we assume that it will only be used for good? I mean, history is replete with examples that show that when people have that much power, it usually, more often than not, brings out the worst in them, not the best. And truthfully, no one's ever had that much power where they can access the brain of human beings. And we now, by the way, our digital self now exists not just in a hologram, not just in, somebody's database of where they've been collecting information, making a profile of you. Now that digital you is a real walking, talking you. It looks like you. It sounds like you. It has a physical form. If you look at what they're doing with taking an endoskeleton, right, and building tissue and building onto it. Look what they're doing with Beyond Meat, taking meat cells and building fake meat that looks like meat out of it. So really what they're, this accepting, for example, well, I've got a cell phone now, they collect my data, so all my privacy's gone. It doesn't end there. Okay, I'm not going to be able to drive a gas car, and I'm going to be on a public transport system that's all electric, driven by somebody else. Oh, I don't really love that. I don't want to give up my car, but okay, I can do public transport. How are you going to board that public transport? Oh, I'm going to have a chip. Well, I chip my dogs so that they're safe. My kids will have chips. At least I'll know where they are. How bad can that be? Oh, I scanned my chip and it said, no, I couldn't go into the grocery store today. Well, why not? Well, I don't know. And who are you going to ask? Who are you going to call? Who are you going to hold accountable for that? Because we've all know, I mean, when something's not working on your Apple device, good luck calling the Apple store, right? Getting an appointment. Maybe these are not. And that's the best case scenario, because the other case scenario is you're trying to pay a bill. You've got a robot answering you and they can't answer your question. And you just keep going in a circle and you never get a human being. Right? And these are small, small things. Who gets access to a kidney transplant? Who doesn't? Right? They're building smart cities, smart homes, smart suburbs, smart. Anytime you see the word smart, all it means is control. And anytime you see the word social, all it means is control. So we're still focused on Roe v. Wade was a terrible decision. It was a great decision, terrible decision, or we're focused on the 2024 election, or is it Trump versus DeSantis? It's like, wow, do you realize where we're going? Okay, when you have Yuval Noah Harari, the science advisor to Bill Gates and to Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, and to many others, who's an Israeli history professor who wrote the book Sapiens and Homo Deus, who Obama recommended, right, in his Christmas list. When you've got a guy like this saying, most of the world will become useless eaters. Well, of course they want you to eat bugs.
They're going to play video games. They're going to play video games. And
why would I share the Wagyu beef with the rest of you if you contribute nothing to society? Yes, Play video games. Play your video games where we keep you. You see what happens to your kids when they stop playing? They get trapped. They can go all weekend long. I lived in a basketball house once, and sometimes I'd go away because I was a traveling journalist. You come back 4 days later and it's, oh my gosh, pizza boxes styled this, piled this high, and they haven't left the room because they use behavioral scientists. They use color. They use music. They use sound. They use systems of reward. They use patterns of behavior. They use the frontal cortex of your brain. They get it to release endorphins they create experiences in your mind that are impossible to replicate in real life, so that you constantly choose to live in a digital world. And now that's coming into business with the metaverse. You can go to your office. Well, I don't have to worry about the traffic. Isn't that great? Because I can go into my metaverse and I can have meetings in my virtual office. And great. Do you like my avatar? I think my avatar, I'm going to be what? Gosh, I got to be careful what I say, right?
I know. I'm like, oh, dear Lord, here we go.
But you know what I mean? The point is that in your avatar, in your digital world, you can be anything you want. You lost a child in your real life. Well, guess what? In your digital universe, in the metaverse, there's my baby. And I can go home and I can be with my baby. I can watch my baby grow up. I've got a whole digital profile that tells me who my baby would have become. And so why would I choose to live in the real world where I don't really have anything and my whole life is better? My every experience is better. They're selling sex robots. They're encouraging, when you go online and look at the commercials for sex robots, they're not just for somebody to have sex with. My life partner. This is the person that will never abandon you. You'll never know rejection again. Doesn't that sound great? Isn't that what they tell you in therapy? Keep all of those kind of people at bay. You'll never control the space around you. You'll never experience those terrible emotions again. In the real world, relationships are give and take. Sometimes you have a bad day and you have to turn around to your husband or to one of your kids and say, you know what, I'm so sorry. I was grumpy. I should not have yelled at you. It's got nothing to do with you. I tell my kids, there's going to be days I'm going to mess you up for life. Unintentionally.
Only asking for forgiveness.
But you need to promise and you'll pay for the therapy.
Yeah. No.
They're on their own.
We don't go to therapy unless it's an absolute emergency, because we teach life skills.
That's right.
Guess what? You can get over this. You can get back up on your feet and you can keep on living, and you can recognize that today this one was on mom. Sometimes your brother, he did that to you. Okay, well, do you see what that's coming out of? So, sometimes you need to recognize that and put that aside. And later, when he's a better frame of mind, let him know that how he made you feel and that it wasn't okay. And I'm betting you're going to get a better response than if you go right to him now and punch him in the face, which is what I know you want to do. Well,
teach our kids to be tough and fighters and warriors. Yes.
Not just victims. I'm a victim. Okay. I'm going to be a victim forever. And I'm going to go. And if anything happens to me, I'm going to go snitch. And I'm going to let someone else fix my problem. No, that's not how it works in the real world. Dr. Seuss, that book, All the Places You Will Go. It wasn't about traveling to Paris and London. It was about you're going to experience failure and depression and loneliness and mistakes. And you might even get back up off your feet, find a way out there and go right back. But you know what? It happens to everyone. You can do it. Those are the things they're taking from our children. Social media doesn't want you to be resilient. They don't want the schools. They don't want you to be resilient. They don't want you to know how to fight your own battles. And, you mentioned that about schools and teachers. My goodness, go back to the history and see how Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. I mean, the beginning of his book is a dedication to Satan, to Lucifer. Look at how that influence over the teachers' unions. Go back to the Frankfurt Institute, who fled to Germany and built a relationship with who? Columbia University.
That's
and
right.
how they were behind. The 60s weren't just Woodstock and LSD and whatever. No, this was orchestrated. It
Yeah.
was planned. It was backed by people with names and addresses, and there was money behind it. There was real manipulation. And now many of those people that are children of the 60s are now in positions of power and authority in the colleges, still pushing these ideologies onto kids. And what was at the core of it? Corrupt Western society, corrupted so badly that it eats itself alive from within. Well, that's why I say to people, you can take yourself off the battlefield. You can pretend that this isn't really a war. You can say, oh, that's so excessive. She's so radical. She's so extreme. She's just crazy. Blah, blah, blah. I don't think there's anything left. They haven't called me. But I don't care, because look at where we are in this fight. Everything is escalating. We're in the end game of this. And I'm not ever going to be your organ donor. You're not taking my blood to keep yourself young. You're not making me eat insects. You know what I mean? That's not happening. And you're not doing it to my children. I'm going to die fighting to the last breath in me, because what is coming is so much worse than what people keep telling themselves. I can live with this and I can live with that. You're blind.
Well, I want to be on Team Laura, and I want
Yes.
to keep fighting for my kids. And that's why Miriam and I started this podcast. So we would love to have you back on again, talking about more mom things, because your career is amazing. And maybe one just last question for you. You're such a truth seeker and truth teller. What are you doing right now with, I know you have some new things coming along. Maybe just briefly tell us about Press Club and some of the new ventures you have going.
So right now I'm working on a series of reports on January 6th, really trying to get to the bottom of what happened that day. Working with people like veteran Green Beret Jeremy Brown, telling his story, 20 years as a Green Beret and now behind bars and facing another trial. There's people like Matthew Perna. It's a name every American should know, because after he took a plea deal, a guy who never had a parking ticket in his life was not material for jail. When the prosecutors kept adding a federal charge, threatening a terrorist enhancement, Matthew took his own life. And he was a great person, loved by so many. And we don't know his story. So I'm working on that. I'm working on a documentary film about the murder of Roseanne Boyland, who also died on January 6th. And they lied about her death, covered it up, and did one of the worst things ever. They said it was a drug overdose, and they tried to, paint her as, a worthless drug addict. So cruel. Nothing could be further from the truth. A woman who had bravely fought addiction and was helping other people get through theirs, and who was unarmed and unconscious on the ground as the Capitol Police were beating her senseless. So we're telling her story. I'm working, on the Press Club to build institutions that are for all journalists. And we need to hold on. The idea behind this is to hold on to the principles of journalism, the fundamental 10 commandments of real journalism, and provide a place for independent journalists to learn some of this. Sometimes they need mentors, sometimes they need advice, sometimes they just need, fellow people around them. Sometimes they need accreditation. We're going to provide press accreditation for people who otherwise won't get it and therefore won't get access to a lot of things. We're also going to recognize the work of people across the media. These days, if you're not woke and fully, please, they're giving Pulitzer Prizes to journalists for reporting on Russia collusion year after year, and it's not even true. Right. And you don't apologize. You don't take back the prize. You don't even acknowledge the fact that it was all based on lies. And that's just one example. So who wants a Pulitzer anymore? It's worthless. So we need to create an alternative structure and recognize real journalism again, and give credit to people who've been in the trenches for a very long time. And people like James O'Keefe and Andy Ngo, who've never had a press pass in their life, right? Who still get dismissed by the New York Times as far-right activists because of the politics. So this is for, this is for even, New York Times journalists. If they want to be real journalists again, they're welcome. This is a press club for real journalists. And then I'm also working on fundraising for to do my show that I did on Fox Nation, No Agenda, but to do that rebranded as Lara Logan with the rest of the story. To tell the rest, all those things that I left out. And for that, I'm working on the trafficking side of it. And that is my most personal, most urgent project. But it's a little overwhelming when, COVID collapsing and all the things happening with that is urgent. The border is urgent. Trafficking is urgent. Schools are urgent. So it's hard. A lot of people know exactly what I'm talking about. Splitting yourself into all these different pieces is really tricky, especially if you want to do it in a substantive way. But that's where we are. Never a dull moment.
No, never.
And you're a mom, and you've got that going on.
And that's the most important part.
Yeah,
they don't want you to admit that, but it really is. It's the most important part.
And where do they get a hold of you at Linktree? So if you go to Linktree, link and then capital T lowercase r.ee/Lara Logan, and we're just going to show your website here real quick.
Is that my website? I'm so bad.
Here we go.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
So you can just catch you on Locals, Twitter, Rumble, Truth Social, Getter. Do those? Is there any other place where they can see, or is this really the best place to follow?
I am so the worst. I'm the journalist. That's what I do. I go out and I do my work. I do my stories. I have no idea about technology. I can't even read that Linktree because I'm so old now. I'm going blind.
Funny.
I just trust in good people who volunteer, like April, who works with me, who's just a lifesaver.
We do the same thing.
Yeah, we're terrible about that.
We all help we can get with the technology.
Yeah, we're pretty bad.
Well, Laura, it's been an absolute honor to speak with you today. And I love all that you're doing to save journalism and to share the truth. So to our audience, we would love to hear from you. So let's get connected. So go to our website at momsonamission.net. That's momsonamission.net, and email us with your comments or questions at moms@momsonamission.net, and follow us on your favorite platform.
And I know that you two are both very strong, extraordinary mothers. I respect you so much for that.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Moms on a Mission is excited to partner with our friends at MyPillow. According to sleep experts and sleephealth.org, over 50 million Americans struggle to get a good night's rest. That's where MyPillow comes in. They make the best pillows, sheets, mattresses, and mattress toppers. Several years ago, I was having trouble falling and staying asleep due to neck and shoulder pain. Luckily, I heard an ad about MyPillow and decided to give it a try. After 3 or 4 days, I really began to feel a difference. I was sleeping better and my neck and shoulders felt so much better. MyPillow really does help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. Moms on a Mission wants you to get a great night's rest too. Go to MyPillow.com right now and use the promo code MISSION for up to 66% off your purchase. MyPillow products are made in America and have a 60-day money-back guarantee and lifetime warranty. Remember, go to MyPillow.com, put in the special code MISSION for your special Moms on a Mission discount. Thank you and God bless.
Hey guys, it's Moms on a Mission here. Are you worried about your financial stability and protecting the money for which you work so hard? The problem is stock market volatility and inflation. You may be wondering what you can do to preserve your family's wealth. We at Moms on a Mission encourage you to reach out to our friend Andrew Sorcini with Beverly Hills Precious Metals. Andrew is the expert in educating you to help you find the right balance of gold and silver for your family portfolio. He made it so easy for me to add precious metals to my financial investments. I simply mailed a check to Beverly Hills Precious Metals and my silver showed up on my doorstep a few days later. It was so easy. Go to bh-pm.com to save a little money and tell them that Moms on a Mission sent you. That's bh-pm.com. Don't wait. Protect your wealth today by going to bh-pm.com and tell them that Moms on a Mission sent you. Hi everybody, it's Moms on a Mission here. Recent research from the CDC says that millions of Americans develop parasitic infections and symptoms often go unnoticed or are misdiagnosed.
Parasites are the cause of many health problems, such as anxiety, depression, chronic pain, fatigue, and unexplained digestive issues. We all need a common sense strategy to improve our health.
We at Moms on a Mission encourage you to reach out to our good friend, Dr. Jason Dean. Dr. Dean's Full Moon Protocol provides all-natural detoxification and fights inflammation. These supplements are made with 100% organic ingredients and are proven to kill parasites safely and effectively.
To order your Full Moon Protocol, go to bravetv.store/mission to save $20 off your first order. That's bravetv.store/mission. Order Full Moon Protocol and start killing those foreign invaders that have been keeping you sick. That's bravetv.store/mission to receive $20 off your first order.